is very clear, and Mike, I think I've expressed that also in the past to you. The MK party is not a progressive political party. It is a reactionary party. The political positions that it had taken in terms of issues around women, you remember some of those terrible comments that Jacob Zuma made about sending young women who fall pregnant to Robben Island, the positions that they've taken on the international diplomatic scene. And yes, I'm concerned about the fact that I've never heard Jacob Zuma speaking about apartheid Israel and what is happening in terms of the genocide in Gaza. And I can go on and on. Presidency, that the leaders of the ANC Youth League were pushed out of the African National Congress. Julius Malema was expelled from the ANC under Zuma's presidency. And something which has always been an enigma to me, and I think only now with the wisdom of hindsight I'm beginning to understand how it happened, is how Zuma in 2012 in Mangaung allowed Cyril Ramaphosa to come back, because Ramaphosa was really out of mainstream politics. He was now basically just a businessman, to come back and to get him to become his deputy president. That was an action which was simply based on expediency, because he had to deal with the problem that he was faced with, that some of his previous allies within the left component of the African National Congress started to see through him. And also that the ANC Youth League were not supporting him. You will remember that at that conference, they supported Kgalema Motlanthe. And he then brought in Cyril Ramaphosa, strangely enough with the assistance of what was known as the Premier League. Because people like Supramo Mopelu and others, including Zweli Mkhize, all of them were part of that group that came to and sat with Zuma and proposed that Cyril Ramaphosa should be brought in as the deputy president. Now, surely, if there was a strong ideological backbone in Zuma, he would have known that the person that he brings in as his deputy president doesn't agree with any of what the so-called progressive wing in the African National Congress would have liked to stand for. That man was the antithesis and continues to be the antithesis of radical economic transformation.
Well, some of the things that remain unexplained in South African politics is this just about how the relationship between Carl Niehaus and Jacob Zuma came to an abrupt end the way that it did. The way Carl Niehaus moves and the position that is adopted pertaining to the existence of Umkhonto we Sizwe Party, which is formed and led by Jacob Zuma, the man that Carl Niehaus once stood firm in defense of. But now Carl Niehaus has become the staunch critic and attacker of Jacob Zuma and Umkhonto we Sizwe Party. This then prompts us to ask the question that what actually happened between Jacob Zuma and Carl Niehaus for Carl Niehaus to be so bitter about Jacob Zuma and Umkhonto we Sizwe Party? So Carl Niehaus says the Umkhonto we Sizwe Party is not about the radical economic transformation agenda. He says it is a reactionary party. We know that after his expulsion from the ANC, that's Carl Niehaus, he then joined the Economic Freedom Fighters. He's currently serving as the EFF's Member of Parliament. So, South Africa, we are at the political crossroads here. A war of ideas, a war of ideology, a war for the soul of economic transformation. As to who actually is the champion of economic transformation in this country. The ANC is claiming it. The EFF is claiming it. MK Party is claiming it. And now, one of the most vocal figures, right? One of the most vocal figures, Carl Niehaus, has come out to criticize the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, right? As he claims that the Umkhonto weSizwe Party is a reactionary project, right? So the question is, when did Carl Niehaus realize this? And why did his relationship with President Jacob Zuma soar up, right? It's important that we ask that, right? So let us look, as I said, we are witnessing a political moment that could redefine how we understand radical economic transformation, right? So the man who has been at the center of the radical economic transformation in terms of advocating for the Carl Niehaus has denounced Umkhonto weSizwe Party, right? He says Umkhonto weSizwe Party is not about radical economic transformation. Instead, he calls it a reactionary project. But what does that really mean? Is this truth or just political warfare? Let us unpack it. Carl Niehaus is not just making a casual statement. He is making a serious ideological critique. He is saying that the Umkhonto weSizwe Party is not driven by a clear economic program to transform ownership and wealth in South Africa. Instead, he argues that the party is reacting to political exclusion, because mainly those people who are in the Umkhonto weSizwe Party are the people that have been excluded by the ANC. He argues that the party is reacting to internal ANC battles. He argues that the party is reacting to dissatisfaction with leadership. In simple terms, he's saying the Umkhonto weSizwe Party is not building a new system. It is responding to frustrations within the old ones. And that's a big accusation. The ideological battle, EFF versus the Umkhonto weSizwe Party. Now let us understand why this is coming from someone aligned with the EFF. The Economic Freedom Fighters positions itself as a party of radical economic transformation. They speak about land expropriation without compensation. They speak about nationalization of mines and banks. They speak about black ownership of the economy. Now, compare that to the MK Party. Where is the detailed policy of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party? That is where also Umkhonto weSizwe Party is found wanting. Where is the structured program? Because you cannot just attain radical economic transformation through slogans. You need a detailed policy. You need a structured program. Where is the clear roadmap? You also need a roadmap. Because for the EFF, ideology comes first. For Umkhonto weSizwe Party, critics like Carl Niehaus says it is something else entirely. What is a reactionary party? Let us break down the term reactionary. A reactionary party is not proactive. It does not lead transformation. Rather, it reacts to events. It mobilizes people based on emotion, anger, frustration, and political betrayal. But when it comes to policy and long-term planning, it becomes weak. So when Carl Niehaus calls MK Party reactionary, He's essentially saying this party is driven by political reaction, not economic transformation. That is a direct ideological attack. The role of President Jacob Zuma. Now, we must talk about the man at the center of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, Jacob Zuma. The MK Party is built around his influence, his supporters, his legacy, his political comeback. But there is an uncomfortable question. Is an MK Party an ideological movement? Or is it a political vehicle centered around Zuma and his family? Because if it revolves around a personality, then Carl Niehaus' argument becomes much more stronger. That this is not about transforming the economy. It's about reclaiming political power. Political warfare or honest truth. Let us be honest here. Carl Niehaus has moved through multiple political spaces. He has defended leaders including Jacob Zuma. He has been part of factions that were led by Jacob Zuma. He understands the game. So when he speaks now from a position aligned with the EFF, we must ask, is this a genuine ideological critique? Or is this political competition? Because South African politics is not just about ideas. It is about power. And right now the EFF and MK are competing for the same support base. What this means for voters. This is bigger than Carl Niehaus. This is bigger than the EFF and the MK Party. This is about you, the voter. Because you must ask, which party has a real plan for economic transformation in this country? No slogans, no personalities, no political drama, but a real plan. Because without a clear program, there is no transformation. And without transformation, we remain exactly where we are. So now the question is yours. Is the MK Party truly a force for radical economic transformation? Or is it what Carl Niehaus says it is? A reactionary movement? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us debate this openly because South Africa deserves clarity. South Africa deserves truth. And most importantly, South Africa deserves real economic transformation. Subscribe to IZWI LABANSUNDU and join IZWI LABANSUNDU for more real unfiltered political analysis. This is where we speak truth even when it is uncomfortable. My name is Debos Kosana, Kamakuma Africa.